Howdy, with this video, I want to go over the doublespeak essay, more particularly the sample essay, make sure you understand exactly what we're looking for. I'm not going to go over the whole essay again, we did that with the last video. But keep in mind you need to find a good primary source that uses doublespeak, and then your essays, you're kind of like the investigative reporter. You're going to go through that primary source and show the different ways they use doublespeak, whether it's through euphemism, jargon, gobbledygook, or whatever. And also through images, of course. But I'm not going to read that whole thing to you. It's up there on the content page. I did that with the last video. You're going to notice I changed a little bit on the content page. I put everything under material for doublespeak essay. Things are starting to go in a bunch of different places. I'm like, no, let's just put it all in one place. But you have the essay there. Make it a little bigger. I have a possible outline for the doublespeak essay, which I'll go over here in a second. The sample essay, the William Lutz source. It's just the first few pages out of this book, but it has all the definitions that you will need for the essay. And there's the PowerPoint if you want to go back over that, if I went through it too quickly or something. Or if you want to click on a particular link and take a look at something, it's there for you. For the possible outline, again, everybody's essay hopefully is going to be a little different. I don't want to read the same essay over and over. But it kind of depends on your topic, about what you can emphasize and things like that. But everyone's going to start out pretty much the same way. You want to give a definition of doublespeak. Probably that one from William Lutz. I don't want you going to dictionary.com or anything. We already have the primary source, the doublespeak dude with William Lutz. So we're going to use his source for these definitions. But you might start off giving a general introduction to doublespeak. A fairly quick one. You shouldn't be on page 2 or anything with this. But you want to introduce doublespeak. Then you want to introduce your primary source. What general category you're going to work with. What's the primary source? So if you're going to do like an advertisement for an antidepressant, you might want to introduce the genre in general, then get into the specific one you're going to talk about. Then your thesis is going to kind of go like this, a careful examination of whatever the primary source is. We'll demonstrate the practice of doublespeak and how language can be used to manipulate us. And then the idea is that you're leading us into your examination of doublespeak within that primary source. So that might be the first paragraph, maybe 2, depends on how much you need to introduce your primary source. But the body of the essay is going to be you revealing doublespeak within that primary source. And again, this depends on your primary source. If you're doing a transcript of a speech, the nice thing about using presidents is that every president's speech is transcribed and put on the internet. So they're easy to find. It's a lot to read through. But if you're a very political person, you want to go that way, the transcripts are there, but you won't have any images to work with. But if you're doing something like an antidepressant ad, you're definitely going to start with images and talk about what's going on within that advertisement. That kind of manipulates the viewer. You're going to see it. The trick is not to make these too formulaic as you develop these ideas. Probably going to start off with images if you have them in your primary source. I'll talk about those, the major images, the background images, then whatever else is appealing to you, or whatever the advertiser is appealing to you through their ad. The fonts. You might point out that a lot of these, particularly medical ads, use actor portrayals. They're not really people suffering from that particular problem. They might use various diagrams, various cartoons, or dramatizations is what they call it. So you might go through the various images. Then you might end up getting into euphemism. When you start using these terms, you want to get a definition going. Define the term first, then show the examples from the primary source, and make sure you discuss those examples. Show us why you think they're euphemism, and how they affect the reader or viewer. You may not end up using all these terms. If you don't use a term, please don't define it. It looks really bad for you to define what jargon is and just say, I couldn't find any, and moving on. It's like, well, why'd you even mention it then? But everybody should probably have weasel words. They're so common within advertisements and political speech. It's hard not to use those. But again, you're just going to begin your paragraph by defining the term. Then you want to give probably at least 2 good examples of your primary source using weasel words and the effect that has upon the reader and what they're trying to do by using those weasel words. You may end up having kind of another category. I've had a good one on Kellyanne Conway, one of Donald Trump's advisors. She's very good at misdirection. It's not really one of the terms, a kind that Lutz has defined. But she'll do something like, why did Donald Trump do this? And she'll say, like, I like the color blue. And she'll go on to some other topic, and you can see the interviewer like, whoa, wait, I didn't even ask that. What happened here? Kellyanne Conway's very good at that, and that might be a different form of doublespeak you talk about. Kind of depends on you and your primary source and things like that. But again, if you don't use the term, don't define it, don't use it in your essay, just go on to the ones that do. Hopefully you'll end up getting a word count and then your brilliant conclusion where you will not repeat your thesis. What are we supposed to get from your analysis? What are we supposed to take away from all the ideas you presented to us? Do we need to be more careful consumers? Do we need to kind of take political speeches with a grain of salt? What is it that we need to do as users of the English language? But again, everybody's outline is going to be a little different. I'm not requiring an outline for this one, but want to kind of give you a pattern there, a general pattern for the essay. If you look at the, well, let's look at the doublespeak source real quickly. Let me make that a little bit bigger. If you click on that, it's a ginormous file. What I strongly suggest is that you download it, and it's also sideways. So I don't want, if you have to get to do an evaluation in the class, I want you going like, well, it's a good class, but now my lecture like this. If you download it as a PDF, you should be able to rotate it. I'm just right-clicking. That didn't work. How do you should be able to rotate it somehow? Oh, there we go. And make it upright, and it's a lot easier to read. But again, you'll just see it's a copy of the doublespeak book. Just chapter 1. Not the whole book, just a few pages. You're going to notice the different types. One, you get the definition of doublespeak that I gave in my PowerPoint and on the assignment sheet. Then it's going to talk about euphemism, then jargon over here, then gobbledygook or bureaucratese, then inflated language. He separates it into 4 different categories. If you continue on, you're going to notice a page break there from page 7 to page 84. That's because I wanted to get that definition of weasel words in there, which is a little farther back in the book on page 85. But you should be using the definitions from here for your definitions for doublespeak. And let's take a look at that sample essay. You're going to notice there's a disclaimer right at the very beginning of it. Get this kind of centered there. This is a draft. This is not a final version of the essay. You're going to see me making some commentary in the essay, particularly expand on this idea. Maybe get a second example, things like that. But it does a good job of showing the basics of the essay. For this one, she's going to use the blue E6 commercials. Back in the day, they used to advertise it as the healthy cigarette. This is kind of the very beginning of vaping. But she's going to begin. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. It's right there on the content page. You can read faster than I can talk. But she begins by giving a definition of doublespeak, kind of introducing what doublespeak is. Gives a direct quote from William Lutz. If you're using that PDF on the content page, there are page numbers there, so go ahead and give the page number if you're an MLA. Again, if you're doing APA, you'll have the year of publication and then the page numbers. And again, don't forget you have the choice of whether you want to do APA or MLA with this essay. Again, if you're going into nursing or social sciences, I strongly suggest you keep working with APA. That's what you're going to be writing in throughout your major. But anyway, she begins with that definition of definition, introducing the term, telling us what it is, and then she leads into a discussion of her primary topic, or her primary source, the blue E6 commercial, and then she gives her thesis there. The website from Blue E6 pretends to communicate with multiple forms of doublespeak, including images, jargon, euphemisms, and weasel words. By using these forms of doublespeak, the Blue E6 company falsely portrays the idea that electronic cigarettes are a healthier, modern version of traditional cigarettes. Very nice thesis statement there. She could probably go back and maybe introduce the primary source a little bit more, where we getting the examples from. But she's going to go to the website, and she's going to start talking about the images. Again, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, and you'll see me making comments along the way about passive voice, things like that. But she's talking about the images. It's kind of an interesting website. People looking all sophisticated as they use the blue e-cigs and look elegant and stylish. That's kind of what she's pointing out. If I remember right, this is one that Jenny McCarthy used to advertise on the television. But make sure you're citing sources as you go. But it's kind of interesting. They're trying to make them look sophisticated. Then she's going to go on to some of the doublespeak terms. She's going to start with jargon. Then she gives a definition. Don't forget you have to have a summary, paraphrase, long quote, short quote. Quite often students want to use the long quote up here when they define doublespeak. They use the same one I used for the assignment sheet. Kind of up to you. But she's going to give a definition of jargon. Then she's going to give some examples of it. And again, it's very important. Once you kind of say, you know, I think this is jargon within the ad or the speech or whatever, tell us why you think that. What's that jargon doing there? What kind of, how's that language, how's that use of jargon doublespeak in nature? How's it trying to manipulate the reader or the listener? Then she talks about euphemism, gives a definition, and starts giving examples. And again, want her to develop her ideas a little bit more. Again, this is a draft form, but she's on the right track. She's following the basic outline. She's going to move on to weasel words, define them, and give good examples. Again, a commercial like this is probably going to have a bunch of them. So you can kind of see her. She was able to get a little bit more out of that paragraph. And she's kind of hitting the word count, looking to get out of the essay. Again, she's going to come, try not to repeat her thesis. Might do maybe a little bit better job of that, but then she gets to a conclusion. She has to work side of page. So the basic outlines there. She's following the assignment sheet. She's kind of paid attention to that sample outline. She just needs to go back and develop some of her ideas a little bit more. But you can kind of see a good example of what the essay is supposed to start to look like there. I think that's about it. My internet's a little slow, so that's why I'm kind of if you want to go back and, like I said, look at that PowerPoint. If there's something within the PowerPoint, if you don't have PowerPoint on your computer, or you can't play it. It's like I really wanted to look at that again. Let me know. I'm happy to send you the link. But all the information is right there. Doesn't mean it's an easy essay to write. And again, we're kind of really ramping up the critical thinking, examining how language is used. So sometimes your brain's hurting a little bit. That's kind of normal. This is not the format's not anything particularly new, but the level of critical thinking's might be something a little bit new. So we've been doing some pretty hard essays throughout the course. But we'll stop there and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.